Welcome everyone here to Musicians Edition. As always on the keys, I am Evan, the piano instructor. In this video, I'm covering chords and simple inversions. Those are going to be first and second inversions. I have already covered chord basics in another video, so if you're not familiar with those, you can go ahead and check that out. I'll cover some basics just to get us going here too. And first, we are talking about chord triads here. A triad is three notes that make up a chord. And a chord is named by the root note, which is also the leftmost note on a mainstream chord. And those mainstream chords are made up of thirds starting from that root note. So first, for a major chord, it would be a major third and then a minor third as a spacing between the notes. Or for a minor chord, it would just be reversed, where it's a minor third first and then a major third. So if the major comes first, it's a major chord. If the minor third comes first, it's a minor chord. And so just one quick example here, the F chord right there is named after the F root note. That's the lowest note right there in our chord. I could play a major third to A, which would be, major third would be four notes. 1, 2, 3, 4 notes to A. And then I would play a minor third, and that would be three notes. 1, 2, 3, over to C. And now I just did a major third and a minor third, so that's the F major chord. Or I could reverse that around to a minor chord by playing F, and then minor third first, so three notes. 1, 2, 3, to A flat. And then the major third, which would be four notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, to C. So that is the F minor chord. The only difference between these two is me moving my middle finger. Major, minor. So the 1 and the 5 stays the same. It's just a matter of changing around that middle finger to be major or minor, depending on what chord you're playing. Easy enough there. That's our basic wrap up. Let's go ahead and go over to inversions. Inversions will mix the notes of a chord into a different order. So instead of playing the F major chord as F, A, C, I'm going to mix up the order. Something like that or that. Still playing the same notes, I just mix up the order that I'm going to have them be across the piano. So one or two of those notes is going to move to a different octave. And we might do this to play around with different voicings of the chord, because you will see how the sound changes between the different inversions we're going to play here. So standard chord, 1, 3, 5 triad, F, A, C, and I'm going to use this F major chord as my example throughout here. The first inversion is moving the root note up one octave. My root note is F. I'm going to move it up one octave to that F. So first inversion of an F major chord, root note jumps up, and I'm now playing A, C, then F. The same three notes of F, A, C, just the order moved around. That's the first inversion, from here to here. Second inversion is just now taking the lowest note from that first inversion and moving that up top now too. So my lowest note in the first inversion was A, and so now that one is also going to join F and go an octave higher to make up this second inversion. So now it's going to be C, F, A. And now that is my second inversion of this chord. So here's a little diagram that can go ahead and show you that. You can see standard F major chord, F, A, C. You can see that first inversion of A, C, F, second inversion of C, F, A. Nothing too complex here so far. Those are all the possible combinations with those three notes really, because if I were to just say, okay, a third inversion, I'm going to move that C up an octave, then I really just go back to F, A, C again. So that's what we have. We have standard chord, first inversion, and then second inversion. Let's practice reading these on the sheet so we can recognize them now as we read them in a song. So here's the general rule. Regular position, that F, A, C we were doing, is a third and then a third. So on the sheet, it looks like they are stacked right on top of each other. Line, 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 or it could be space, 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 right on top of each other like that. And you can see that in this first example, showing the root position. Okay, and then if we do the first inversion, we had that root note jump up. And so the first inversion is right there. You can see there's a little bit of a gap between it as opposed to those two lower notes now. And that's because that's a gap of a fourth instead of a third. Root position was all thirds. This one is a third and then a fourth back up to that root note that jumped higher. And if you look at the spacing on how you're playing them on the keyboard, we had F, A, C. There's just one white note in between each of those that we play. When I do A, C, F, that first inversion, you can see one note between A and C, but then two in between C and F there. So that's where that fourth is. So that's how that first inversion is going to look. And then second inversion where we had the A also jump up there too. So you're going to see we have C, F, A. And you can look at your hands as they're playing that too, and you can see where that space is going to be between C and F. We have two notes D and E in between that versus F and A, just that one note of G in between. So that is how it's going to look on the sheet there too. One note at the bottom, then that gap of a fourth, and then the two above it. And you can see where the root note is highlighted in each of these two. In the root position, it's just at the bottom. In the first inversion, that root is the highest note. In the second inversion, the root is then the middle note. Okay, let's go ahead and look at some practice examples that we can try to do now. So here is a sheet with some examples of chords, and these first three are all just going to be easy ones to work our way into this using that FAC we've been practicing with. What I'd want you to practice with each of these is figuring out the root note, and so that gives you the name of that chord, and then figuring out what kind of inversion it is. So in this first one, it's going to start pretty easy. You can see we just have third, third, third. Okay, so we know it's just the regular root position of the chord. And so just to name it, we just got to look at that bottom note. That bottom note is F, right there. And we're just reading thirds above that, so we know that's going to be F, then A, then C. So that's that standard chord I was playing. Next one, we have the two on the bottom are close, then we have that gap to the top one. That is what the first inversion looks like. And so in this one, I'm just sliding my hands, A, C, and F. That root note is up top, that's the F. This one here, we're gonna push it to that second inversion now. So that C stays the same. I have F and A up higher. And the root note is above that fourth, that F there. So that's how each of those look for that chord that we've been practicing with. Standard, first, and second inversions there on those first three measures. Okay, so now after this, I mix them up a little bit here. So this next one, we are gonna be playing three notes that are all just thirds apart. So we know this is root position. There's no fourth in there. All thirds apart, so we know the root is at the bottom. What note is that? That is G. So I'll play G, and then they're all thirds, so I know I'm gonna play G, B, then D. Pretty standard chord there, G major. All right, next let's look at some of these inversions. This next one we have one note on that bottom line, and then we can see that jump of the fourth with two notes above it. So if it was one note by itself at the bottom, that is the second inversion. So the second inversion, which means the root note is going to be the middle note there, right above that fourth. So let's figure out what I'm playing here. That's an E on the bottom. Then we have that gap of the fourth. So a couple ways to do this. You could just look at it and use your acronyms to figure out what that space is there. Or you could just jump up a fourth, skip two notes here. And I'm going to be E and then A. And then up a third, I'm going to skip one note, and that's going to put me on C. I'm playing E, A, C. And remember, my root note was the one in the middle here, so that is A. So what I'm playing here is a second inversion of an A chord. The root position would be A, C, E. All right, we are on that second inversion there. Next up, okay, so we have 2 notes on the bottom, then a 4th with 1 note by itself up top. That is the root note that jumped up there, so it is the first inversion. First inversion for this one with the root note as the highest note. So let's figure out what I'm playing here. That is every good boy on the 3rd line, so I'm playing a B. Up a 3rd is gonna put me on D, and then up a 4th, I skip 2 notes there, I'm gonna stretch to G. So this is B, D, G, and I said the root was the highest note, so this is a G chord as a first inversion. First inversion G chord. The root position would have just been G, B, D. First inversion, we are B, D, G. All right, I did put a couple in here with the left hand as well too. And so you can see this first one on the bass clef. Remember, we're gonna be switching how we read it. Instead of using that treble clef, switch over to the bass. This one is 1 note by itself on the bottom, 2 up top together. That one was second inversion. So this is a second inversion. That bottom note is a good birds don't, a D. And then I'm jumping up a 4th. That's gonna put me on G. Up a 3rd puts me on B. So my root note in the second inversion is the middle note. That middle note I'm playing is G. So this is a G chord as a second inversion. The mainstream position would be G, B, D. We're at the second inversion where we have the D by itself down low, and then G and B. Last one. So this one, they're all nice and tight together. There's no gap of a 4th. So we know that this is going to be the root position, the regular position for the chord. Our root note is at the bottom. So that bottom note is A. So I'll play A here, I can go down here. I'll play A right there. And then just up a 3rd from each of those, C, and then E. Standard A chord, A minor to be exact. And that is gonna be it as far as chord inversions go. I hope this wasn't too hard for you, and I hope you do feel more confident in reading and playing these chords and chord inversions out. It's a really nice tool to have to be able to play in different voicings that we can continue to expand upon in the future. Have fun playing, and I'll see you next time.